Hi there, and welcome to the Residents of Horror podcast Save Room, or Save Room podcast. Sorry. Come and hang out with us from whatever monsters you've been fighting, ghouls, zombies, and other matter. And tonight we are going to talk about a couple of things on the docket. The first thing being Iron Lung, and the last thing being the Blob.
Should we tell people who we are first?
Yes, I was literally about to get into that before you rudely interrupted me.
You're terrible at segues.
There I am.
You suck.
I suck. I'm so bad at it.
Oh my goodness, you're a host.
Why are you listening to me?
Actually, that's pretty on par with all podcast hosts I listen to, so I think you're doing fine.
Yeah, I've seen plenty that just suck or just do really well, but I'll get better. Anywho, I am Kevin Morris, your host, and my co-host, Jacob.
Hi, I'm Jacob. I'm the co-host.
He is the co-host. He is the Jacob.
No Ashley today.
No Ashley today. Friday for sure.
Friday for
We're absolutely sure. Absolutely
More content coming down the pipeline. It's just a little stuck. It's just a little stuck. You know, life happens. Life don't hold its punches sometimes. So. Yeah, sometimes you gotta get the grease.
Yeah, you gotta get the grease, Walter.
You gotta slide it around the edges.
Slide it in there, Walter.
Get it in between the thing and the thing.
Get all the grimes out.
Get all the grimes.
No more half measures.
Yeah. When it's good and lathered up, that's when you start slapping it really hard. I mean, depending on your preference, you're either going to be pushing or you're going to be pulling. One or the other.
One of the two.
One of the two.
One of the two.
One of the two. First of all, I gotta say, first things first, news update. We're not going to be talking about my episodes this month because Ashley wanted to weigh in and no Ashley, so I guess we'll save that for next time.
Yes, and
Yeah.
there will be more context, so we'll catch up on everything.
Yeah, but we'll talk about your Blob episode and we'll talk about Iron Lung because I put the trailer
in
mine.
the thing.
Yeah,
with everybody's favorite YouTube Markiplier.
Yes. I was actually, to prep for this, I watched an entire documentary. I did not know this. He actually did a lot of interviews. He did like 8 interviews about Iron Lung.
Who?
Markiplier.
Oh, really? Oh, I did not know that. Okay, so
Yeah.
what video did you find, and I'll tell you what I went off of.
I don't remember anything I went off of. I just watched a bunch of stuff.
Oh, okay.
So,
I went primarily off of the Pyrocynical video review for
okay.
that.
Link in description.
They added like a console computer that you could ask questions about the lore of the world and all that kind of
It's
stuff.
a lore mode. It's like a lore update. You can see that in Markiplier's second video if you're watching his content. So, but the thing is, I want to, for people who don't know, Iron Lung is this very obscure horror game, and Markiplier is a YouTuber, and he decided to make a movie of it. And the thing that's mind-blowing about this is, I didn't know this. I thought it was going to come out on his channel. No, this is going to be like a theaters thing.
Which I did not know that.
No,
and I'm
yeah,
kind of curious. Did he talk about that on his podcast?
No, it's just like, he talks about some of the like risky stunts that he did on the podcast. That's pretty much all he really talked about the podcast is. And I'm like, how many? He's in a little submarine. How many stunts can there be? But it sounds like there are actually like a lot of stuff. And, like, I don't know. I haven't seen the movie. No one's seen the movie. He's supposedly still editing it, but it's interesting. I'm very curious what it's going to be, because I have a hard time believing he's the only actor in the film, but also at the same time, filming wrapped up so fast,
I think he did about 2.5 to 3 weeks of filming.
Yeah.
Which, if it depends, he said it's a feature film, so I'm assume they got all they needed, and it sounds like he worked on it almost every day.
Right.
So it could have been. I mean, he has more of a budget to do those things than people like myself have.
Yeah. So this is a big deal just because a lot of YouTubers have tried to go from YouTube to Hollywood, and it has never worked out. Some people might say, oh, what about this exception or that exception? And those guys don't count because they quit YouTube and then became Hollywood people. They weren't YouTube people who were doing Hollywood stuff. I'd like to point out, like, say, anytime the Corridor Crew or any of those guys have ever try to do a Hollywood thing, Hollywood just completely messes it up. They say, hey, you got to hire our actors, you got to hire our stunt crews, you got to work within the union, like, and then all those stuff, and it just stagnates and makes everything super expensive, and it makes everything take forever. And so it's just Hollywood being dumb Hollywood for all the worst reasons, and that's why people can't be creative when working with those people. But because Markiplier built this community of professionals all by himself, and he's editing the darn thing and producing the darn thing all by himself, as far as I know, like, with, like, the original creator of the game there, like, as far as I know, on set, like, you know, just giving shot-to-shot blessings, you know, it's just, it's literally going to be the first successful film of its kind, if it is successful. Who knows, it might just go on the big pile of failures. However, the fact that the reason why all of the previous attempts are failures are just completely vacant from the production, it'll at least be different, if not good, in my opinion. So I am just so excited for this. And it's a universe and world I'm very excited about and I'm very interested in. And it's being made by probably one of the best filmmakers we've got right now. There's only a handful of people who are making good content right now, and I think Markiplier, as far as like professional Hollywood scale production values, I think he's pretty much one of the very few people who are pulling stuff out to do good stuff. Who knows? We'll see. Like, because I know that there's like that Five Nights at Freddy movie coming out later this year as well, and people are saying a lot of good things about that, but I am going to reserve judgment until that film actually comes out. Am I excited for Five Nights at Freddy's, the movie? Yes. Am I going to assume it's a good movie? No. But Iron Lung, this is the kind of competition Iron Lung has to go up against, and I'm looking at, like, when it's getting released and stuff like that, and just the state of, like, entertainment and what's coming out of Hollywood right now, and I've got to be honest, I didn't go see Little Mermaid, but I had a very lengthy conversation by my good friend that did, and the only thing he asked me to do was not to go see it. He says this movie needs to actually not make money, and he didn't tell me why, but I'm going to trust him. So, yeah, that's just me. That's me being a good friend, right? Not going to see a movie because they asked me to, right?
Yeah. And, like, I'm sure there'll be a way in a couple of weeks where you can view it and judge it for yourself without giving them money. Trust me, I know several, so. But seriously, though, and I've seen things, like, people in the theater, like, screenshotting stuff about that film where they're like, is this the level of acting or the level of animation that you really put out?
Mm-hmm.
That this is where all your money went, huh?
Yeah. Disney's been doing a lot of that lately with a lot of their productions, especially in the Marvel stuff. I don't know.
Well, they're just trying to pump out stuff, quality over quantity. I mean, quantity over quality. My bad.
Yeah, and so the thing is, and you saw In Space with Markiplier, so you know he can have high production values on a project. And you didn't listen to any of any of his radio play stuff, have you?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you've only seen Markiplier in, like, a comedy sense, like where he's being silly and funny. I can 100% guarantee you, like, I have seen him play serious roles. He can do it. Like, think more Damien from Who Killed Markiplier. Well, I mean, even in his comedy stuff, he's taken on more serious roles. Like the whole Damien thing, some of the more emotional moments in Space with Markiplier and stuff like that. Like, Did you go through? You went through that stuff with Ashley, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
so-
not In Space with Markiplier, but the other two we did.
Okay.
Date with Markiplier and shoot, what's the other one? Oh, Heist with Markiplier. We went
yeah.
through
Oh,
those.
you did Heist.
Those
Okay.
are fun.
Yeah, so they're a little bit on the peripherals. Like you actually have to dig to find the more serious lore in those, in Heist or Space. But the thing is about those things is like, yeah, I've seen him play very emotional, serious roles, and so knowing that he has that range actually available to him, and he is the actor who is going to be playing the main role in Iron Lung, I don't know. I just feel like that whole project is in good hands. But I can't see how else it can be outside of, like,
He could
Mark-
totally Neil Blomkamp it with his new thing, which did terrible, but hey, and that was that guy's first thing as far as like getting away from studios and all that. So there's that, but I have faith in Markiplier as a creator, and it sounds like he has surrounded himself with a good crew. Now, something interesting, piggybacking off of what you were saying prior about YouTubers coming into the more mainstream celebrity platforms. Like I would say they usually go from, and a lot of times when I saw this, it would start like either from Vine or from the famous sketches that they had on YouTube. And then all of a sudden when YouTube was like, okay, we're going to start making movies. And so all of you guys are going to have to move out to LA so you guys can collaborate kind of like the Vine people did.
yeah, what a mess.
And then even an example of this is the Fred movie.
right.
Which I don't know if you remember that guy's channel, but he talked with a high pitched voice.
Yeah, I remember.
There was
that.
a lore to his stuff where it was like, oh yeah, he's being like domestically abused by his parents, and it was just like
right.
But no matter what, he just had his happy chipper attitude about what he was doing.
Yeah.
And then I would say even another creator who's just like, oh my goodness, a lot of bad things have happened, and I'd say mostly because they were high on themselves. They got their own platform to be midnight show hosts, so late night. But the thing was, she was the first woman that was doing it. So that whole angle was just very much just like her poking fun at men the whole time, and how she's the
I know
first
who you're
this
talking about.
constantly.
I can't
Lily Sings, that's her name, Lily Sings,
remember.
and it catapulted from that, got like I think 2 seasons, and then it was canceled, to where it was like now she gets a Netflix documentary, and it was like supposed to be a mockumentary, but it was so poorly received to where it's like it sounds like she's just going back to YouTube. So it sounds like just things being catapulted so quickly. Well, it also depends on the type of person, but so quickly to being like a famous thing or something that's like, oh, this is going to be popular, it's going to make us a whole bunch of money, and then it just doesn't do that. Whereas it's something that's homegrown, like Markiplier stuff, where he's just kind of created the building blocks of just making the thing better each time.
Right.
So now he's got a level of, I guess, from what we kind of expect from him, of as far as like production value. So, and we know he can act. We've seen him in stuff before, and how he does his roles actually pretty well.
Right.
Not just comically, but also taking things more
Like
seriously.
he definitely has a range, right? Where it's like there are some roles he is not capable of pulling off, at least not to my knowledge. Who knows? Depending on how he acts in Iron Lung, we'll see. He might prove me wrong, and he might be able to work outside the range that I think he can. But it's just so interesting because you look at like his contemporaries, right?
Right.
Like people he's rubbed elbows with. I'm going to look at Jacksepticeye, right? And he's made so many cameos in so many Hollywood movies, right? And he's done like interviews with actors he's fans of and stuff like that, you know? And
he did an interview, well, actually a surprise thing with, I think he interviewed Jack Black one year, and then he was doing a fundraiser, and Jack Black went, like, literally crashed his fundraiser and was like, hey man, I just want to come say hey and bring in more money for you. So,
Yeah.
and then not only that, there was that movie with Ryan Reynolds
Oh yeah.
about video games, and he's in that.
Yes, it's funny, but the thing is, and that's the thing, is like, and they've all of the YouTube people I know that have gone off and played with Hollywood, right? There's they all complain about the same thing, and it's just like there's not a lot of acknowledgement of like the fact that there are very talented people. It's like, oh, YouTubers are less than Hollywood actors, right? And when it comes to production and crew, they're just like, they don't want to be working with these people because they think they're small time. When truth be told, when you look at the way trends are right now, TV is dying. It's so weird because I thought, no, TV will still be around even with YouTube, but you look at TV.
Oh, it's been dying.
And it's dying, and it's because it's gotten and now it's to the point where people are jumping ship off of television and hopping onto streaming services and websites like YouTube.
It's pretty much the next cable at this point.
Right. And YouTube is actually changing how it operates to become more like television, because it's what these television people want it to be like, because it's what they're familiar with. But as YouTube becomes more television, all it's going to take is a new website that's a little more, we're going to see the change. All the coins are going to flip on the table, and it's just going to be like, oh, okay, YouTube's going to be the new television, and some other website's going to be the new YouTube, and that's just the way it's going to be. I thought that was TikTok for a while now, but TikTok has had a real strange just development as far as an audience. And don't get me wrong, TikTok is 100% one of those big newnesses that are actually sticking around in a way that I'm like, oh, this is not a trend.
Yeah.
But the thing is just like Vine, I think TikTok can be actively replaced by something else if something more convenient is out there. Because at the end of the day, when you want to look at trends of creators, right? What people are creating on, it's whatever's most convenient.
Yeah.
And now YouTube is making it less and less convenient to be a creator on there, to a point where unless you're making videos if you want to, not because it's viable in any kind of way. Now, of course, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of creators that have gotten their foot in the door and understand the system and have adapted to the system to the point where they can remain successful. But the fact that I don't know, I think last time I got rid of over more than 80 YouTube channels I was watching. I stopped watching them because I started listening to podcasts that these people were also on. So, and that's really weird for me to say. I know this is really weird for me to say because, again, this is a podcast we're doing on YouTube, right? But we're putting it on YouTube as just I don't know. I'm not trying to be the new hotness. And I'm pretty sure you're not either. I mean, it's just because there are things we want to make.
We need a platform, and we need a platform to put these things out on. And so interestingly enough, when you talk about it's not very friendly for creators currently, is I find what's fascinating is YouTube really wants shorter line content, mostly because TikToks have become popular and they make their way on here. But now this YouTube Shorts is starting to kind of hold its own as well.
Yeah.
To where it's I found pages that I follow now strictly through shorts, and I was like, oh, I like this quick synopsis of this thing.
Right.
And then the guy on the video is like, okay, well, here's me showcasing this cool gun, and I do it in a cool way. Oh, by the way, I do a full video on breakdown on all the nerdy specs on it on my YouTube channel, but this is, he made a short specifically to, advertise that. So I'm seeing a lot of stuff like that. But what's crazy is
making full videos, and then they make the short clip show version of it, and then they post that short clip show version of it onto say a YouTube Shorts and TikTok. The creator of it is just they just sandblast everything with the short version of it, and then put down the link for the longer version of it, is usually what I'm seeing right now. And it's even to the point where TikTok is allowing people to create longer and longer videos. It's weird how TikTok is turning into YouTube and YouTube is turning into TikTok in a way where people that are using both of those systems are noticing less and less difference between them, where they used to be extremely specific in the format that you wanted to do. Where I remember
one's vertical and one's horizontal.
a little more than that.
That's
like,
yeah.
Even to the point where it's just like there was a point where YouTube was like, "Hey, your video has to be over 20 minutes long, right? Or you can't monetize it, right?" And that's so that at the 10-minute mark they can put an ad break in there, right? And that's an ad break they put in there whether you're monetizing your video or not. So it's just like, oh, do you want to get paid by YouTube or not? And now the system's different where it's just like, you know, you just shared the numbers with me about this channel and you're just like, look, if we want to hit the easy button with getting more views, it's definitely the YouTube Shorts. But that's because they actually give handouts if you do that format, which I'm like, okay, so we do that until they change it to and they start giving handouts in a different way. Then you do it that way. So, which, I mean...
Or whatever's trending, which is
yeah.
interesting because you look at people like the more longer format, which I'm seeing a lot more creators wanting to do more long format. One of them being definitely like Windigoon, where it's not just lore stuff that's like ARG related or something like that. Now it's like real life stories, and he breaks down all the facts and he tells it like a story. Or you have all these other people who are doing like video essays and all that kind of like White Light or Pyro, where it's like they want to do a full like hour to 2 hour video.
Yes,
and those are incredibly popular.
My favorite videos have been about video games specifically, have been about 5 to 6 hour essays, right?
Yeah, now that's something I come back to.
And boy, like Action Button Reviews, that guy, like an entire, like, I don't know, it was what was it? It was like a 7-hour review of Doom or something like that. It was ridiculous. It was like,
oh wow,
it was like my entire workday plus some. Before, and I was just like, wow, I've never had to watch an entire video or listen to an entire video while I work for an entire shift and then stop it and then finish it up on my next day's shift. It was bonkers, and I'm like, no wonder this guy only comes out with one video every 3 years. and every time he does, it's like an amazingly popular video. Like it actually has success. But I think that guy mainly runs like a blog or like some kind of, or he's a reviewer of some kind of magazine as his main thing. But like whenever he comes out with like a video, it is an amazing, like, okay, I'm going to live in this video game to the point of just like you become it. It's like the end of 2001, you know.
Yeah.
Very much that kind of journey with every single subject he's ever talked about, and it's because you spend so much time in that. Because I'm like, I don't know about you, but I find it very hard to talk about a game for 9 hours straight, you know, or 7 hours straight, and it's just
kind of
like,
depends how you break it down.
Holy
but yeah,
cow,
some are
like,
just like, that's a lot.
So
For them, they're doing a lot of research outside of that.
Yes,
like half the time
yes.
in these reviews, that if you're listening to like a 6-hour review or something like that, an hour of that is dedicated to the company and where their heads were at before making this and what road led them to the development. Then you get to hour 2 and they start talking about the roots of this thing and where it came from, the development and all that, and early stuff. And then I could see how it could turn into that. Even just looking at what was it? I had it when I bought it way back, was the Halo 2 collector's edition. And it had DVD with like a 2-hour documentary of just Bungie, you know, trying to evolve from Halo 1 to Halo 2, and then like at the very end of it, they're like, of this documentary, they're like, we don't have enough time to put all this in here. We got to ship what we have and make that like ready in 3 weeks. Or not even 3, it was in 2 weeks before they started a distribution and all that. And they're like, man, here's our whole story. And they had like a full wall of where the story beats and everything like that. And the part that got chopped off pretty much just turned into Halo 3. But, there was a lot for them to go through. And even in that, they, like, tapped on, like, things like Rooster Teeth and, other things that have been influenced just by Halo 1.
Oh, so Rooster Teeth's another one of those guys who went and started rubbing their elbows with, like, production and Hollywood. Not Hollywood specifically, but Hollywood adjacent.
Oh, they became a production company.
Yeah, and that really, man, How the Mighty Were Fallen, where it's just like they went off and made a Transformers television show, which sounds like a dream, but when you look at, like, who they started as and what they became, it's one of those things. It's like, oh, I don't recognize any of you people anymore. What the heck, And it's I can't even be mad about it because that's one of those things where if you listen to any interviews with those guys, it's like, we played with the devil and we paid the price, and it's just one of those things where creators keep on telling me. Every single time they sacrifice, they wish they hadn't, or compromised, I guess I should say. Because, it's just like whenever you are a creator of something and you compromise, you're making less of the thing you want to make and more of somebody else's thing. And I've seen it to the point I've heard some real horror stories about, like, hey, I wrote a script, I was the director, I was the composer, and I went in, and then it's just like A, B, and C got changed, and after that, like, when the Hollywood process, things change in degrees, to the point when by the time you get through editing, like, there was that one director who was, he went big time with his horror movie, right? And he made that short. It went on YouTube and it was super popular. I don't remember which story it was, but he
Lights
did that.
Out.
Was it Lights Out?
Yeah, he made several shorts with him and his wife. I think he's a Swedish guy.
Yeah, I think you might be
right. He made like 4 of them, and one of them was definitely the one that became Lights Out.
Yeah, so which, going from that, like, it's like, here's my concept, and it's just like, hey, we love your concept. Like, the number of times, like, personal friends of mine have written a script, and then they take it to the producers and the guys with the money, right? And the guys with the money say, hey, I love your script, I want to hire you, but I don't want to use your script, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, well, and then they give you their script to like edit. It's so weird. It's a very strange thing.
Because a lot of these things that you see are sometimes shells of their former selves, unless it's like a company where it's like they completely give the reins to this one director. Like, I'm still surprised that, like, the 1982 The Thing is as good as it is without as much of the studio getting their hands in on it, just because of constant setbacks.
Right.
With that. And it's crazy that it came out so good, too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's why people still take chances on things, right?
Or like a movie like The Abyss.
Yeah, The Abyss
where
is the same way.
Where it was like, hey, we made this huge, like, I think it was an ex-nuclear reactor factory that was like, it was a dunzo, and they filled it all up with thousands and thousands of gallons of water, and there was times where it's like a couple people got hurt. Water-related accidents from staying down too long and all that kind of stuff, and that production sounded like a nightmare. But
man, I don't think I could work with water.
I don't think so either.
And it's funny you talk about it because I think that is a good, like, comes around full circle to Iron Lung, because that is a submarine movie.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. No, well, knowing Markiplier's how his internship went with Corridor Digital.
Yes.
And he's not there anymore.
No,
he took a lot from what he learned with them. He was there for a while, and I think he's looking to apply it to this probably as well. Because the thing I noticed was he talked about, like, In Space with Markiplier, which was before Corridor Digital. Mm-hmm. And it does have some good effects in it. It has some good practical effects, and it has some good CGI effects and stuff like that that's in there that's comped in relatively well for what he has, and especially if he's just the one doing them. I know he's probably got like one other person I think he's talked about as editor, Not the other guy that we always see his stuff. I know he mentioned he had one other person before, and I want to say he did like a video. It was a challenge of how to cut a video, and that person, it was between him and two other guys.
Yeah, as a competition.
And one of them also he had mentioned could do visual effects as well. So he might be even utilizing that guy's talents. I wish I could remember all these people's names, but I remember that.
Yeah, it's
Excuse me.
So one of the things is you're gonna probably notice about Iron Lung just based off of the interview and then also what he said on his podcast, which that's not Go My Favorite Sports Team. That's the sports podcast he does. It's what's the name of his podcast? Why can't I remember it?
I know which one you're talking about. I don't remember.
It's where him and his friends do the Whose Line Is It Anyway game show thing.
Oh, that one? Oh, I don't know anything. I just know about Distractable.
Distractable. Distractable is the name of the podcast.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Then I didn't.
Yeah. But the thing is just judging off of what he said about it, it sounds like, I think, Kevin, this is something you want to watch with your stunt friends more than your special effects friends, if that makes sense. Because it sounds like the stunt work is the impressive stuff in the movie, not so much the special effects in this one. It sounds like it's just because if it's anything like Iron Lung, which is a single guy in a submarine with no windows, I'm just scratching my head. It's just like, does he have a guy he talks to? Is it pretty much like a silent protagonist where he doesn't say anything at all? Like, I'm very confused about or are they going to throw several people into a submarine so he has some other actors to bounce off of?
So personally, I think it's gonna follow. I think it's gonna follow in suit with the game.
You think it'll just be a video version of the game then?
Well, I think they're gonna expand on it personally, because why else would you add a bunch of stunts? I think there's going to be something in there. A liken is to there's a revelation, and he finds a way to cheat the system and get at and like a glimmer of hope. Because they mentioned there is another submarine down there that is crashed.
This is what I think. I think the movie is probably, this is my prediction, I think the movie's going to start prior to him going into the submarine and underwater, or he's going to have flashbacks while doing the submarine stuff. Because the thing is, one of the things that all the fans are clamoring for is lore about the world, and so much of the world is not in that blood ocean and not in that submarine. I'm talking about the Silent Rapture, where all of the planets that are inhabitable are just gone, and you just have a bunch of useless asteroids and moons that can't support life on them is all that's left, along with like the freestanding space stations out there, right? And
the thing that they talked about with the lore is that I'm trying to remember, but there was one of the documents talks about a summoning. And what it was is it's replacing another world's planets with the planets that are here. So our planets are just disappearing and replacing them with these hell moons and stuff like that, and other otherworldly things that have different creatures, and that like hell dimension event horizon style is just coming through and taking the place of things that have already pre-existed here.
Right, but if he was like a guy who either has the death sentence or is he just a prisoner criminal man, right? And it's like, okay, the first quarter of this movie is them saying, hey, everybody and everything is just gone, there's only us now, like, because there are like factions in that world, and it comes up because it's just like, oh, there's no government now, I guess I'm the government now, kind of stuff, you know?
So the thing about it is it's technically a cult.
Right.
But it's basically like, oh yeah, Earth, we don't talk about them and we don't communicate with them, is from my understanding of the lore that I was looking at for it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. But everything that you look up about their foundation in that talks very positively about it. And it's kind of interesting to where it's like, well, what did you as a convict possibly do? Was it just simply speaking out against them? And it's just like, well, he spoke out against us. We're just going to have to throw him in jail.
Maybe. And that's the thing. It's so vague, and the lore because it's all in text and past tense, it's all alludes to things that I'm very curious about. So we'll either get, as far as I know, we'll either get a very direct version of storytelling where it's just like, hey, I am thrown in jail and I am part of this society. Oh, that society that threw you in jail is now gone. They literally just don't exist anymore. So we're going to put you in a submarine to go find out what the heck is going on here. Because Earth might have disappeared, but New Blood Ocean is here now, and so we have to explore it, because that's the only thing that's showing up as a new thing. Because things aren't just going away, new things are coming in as well.
Yeah,
So,
and there's even hints to civilizations there. Is like, I think one of the canyons that if you just kind of, from what people have mentioned, like, hey, if you just go straight to this area, you can find like a whole architecture thing over there,
Yes.
which is like, oh, that implies a different intelligent life lived here before all this Blood Ocean thing happened.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. I don't know if he's working with the creators of Iron Lung. I'm a little curious
Markiplier?
about that.
Yeah. Like the creator of Iron Lung, he was a direct influence. Like they were in constant contact with that guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then, okay,
So
then
it's that
tells
thing
me
where
everything.
he were not just an advisor. They were super involved with like how to pull off the mood and things like that, from my understanding of it. So, and that's the thing. If somebody came up to me, it's like, hey, Jacob, I want to make a movie off your thing, right? And I would not be, if I said okay to that person, I would not assume I would be involved in that movie making process. So the fact that Mark went out of his way to invite him in and constantly have his ear, so that, you know, it'd be like, hey, you weigh in on every single step of this. It just knows that whether for better or worse, it has the pretty much the most direct influence from the original creator of the world as you possibly can, to the point that, according to Markiplier, if I remember correctly, like it feeds into the lore, right? Where it's just like, okay, it expands on it. Or adds to it in some way, in a way that it goes hand in hand with this game, right? So,
Right. And I think piggybacking just on the whole Iron Lung thing, I will bring on another thing that I've been looking at as far as production and YouTubers are involved with. Is I don't remember if I'm pretty sure I showed you this, but do you remember the live action SCP, like Overlords and Dollhouse and stuff like that?
yeah, I remember that.
So, interestingly enough, I learned, and I was part of the donation campaign for their third one, which was going to have Garantham and all these other, like, gun tubers in it. I heard Donut was supposed to be in it as well. Yeah. Well, what happens, they just didn't meet the requirements by a certain date, and they're like, man, we need, like, a good $20,000 in the next week, and that's just not going to happen. And it just didn't happen. So they're like, okay, well, we do have a backup. And that is, we're going to get into the Stalker series.
I would love... Yeah,
so-
that's one that needs, like, a modern brushing, is the Stalker series.
that's been shot. I've seen all the BTS for it.
Ooh.
But not only that, so they have the guy, Evan Royal, he's responsible for that series. But he also brought in, for writing purposes, is Wendigoon. So they co-wrote that and worked on it together.
Really?
So yeah, which I hear he's a big Stalker fan as well. So it was really interesting just to see, like, people, like, on YouTube, like, not just Markiplier, but other people are doing their own things, just like, forget Hollywood, we're just gonna try and make this thing happen ourselves.
This is what I'm seeing, though. I think movie remakes of video games because we've already remade all the movies, so remaking video games is going to be the next thing. All these remakes of video games into movies is going to be handled extremely well by a bunch of passionate people, probably from the YouTube scene, and Hollywood is going to have one desperate hurrah to try to imitate it by also doing that. And you can tell they kind of started already with the Mario. Well, actually, I'm going to say this. With the Sonic movie and its success, and the Mario movie was super successful, and it's that thing of just like, okay, I am seeing this. Hollywood knows video games is, because there's an entire market of fans there that is just hasn't been handled well. And it's so funny because you do interviews with so many of the people who make the successful stuff in video game adaptations to films, and they're always like, yeah, you just got to ignore what the people who make the money say and do whatever you want. Oh, there was a director that happened, a movie that happened recently where the director was in big trouble because he breached his contract 7 times because he decided to make the movie his way instead of the way they wanted to make it. And so end result is he's not going to be making any money off this film. But you know what? There was a review, right? And I guess the interview that he had also breached his contract because it was an NDA. But he was like, you know what? I broke my contract 6 times, breaking it a 7th. Not even going to worry bad, right? And I'm just like, dude, you can't keep doing that. But it doesn't seem to be outside of him not making any money for 3 years of work, he doesn't seem to mind or care. So he's doing fine. But the fact that it's just that movie's now going around in movie festivals and it's super people are really liking it. It's a horror movie. I don't remember what it's called, but that director is just throughout the entire interview with the guy, he just has his arms crossed and he's shaking his head because he's just all these yahoos in Hollywood are a bunch of idiots and they don't know what good content is. So I made the movie I wanted to make no matter what anybody said, to the point there was actors that were on the quota, right, of people to play in there, and so he's like, okay, you got to show up on set, you're going to sit down in your trailer and you're just going to hang out there, you're not going to go on set and do anything. And so the actors got kind of pissed because these AA actors that they wanted in the film aren't. So, and it's a bunch of shenanigans like that. So the director just did not make the film that every time the producers or anybody else with a decision-making power outside of the director was just hey, change this, do that, he just pretty much told them, okay, yeah, I'll do that, and then didn't do it.
He basically just snubbed the studio
yes,
a bunch. Usually whenever I read something about a movie and when it goes tails up,
right.
One example being The Thing, 2011, which is interestingly enough the movie that got me interested in the old movie and back into horror films again.
Right.
I thought it was kind of interesting because the original 2 directors or creators were no, we wanted to do the entire thing practical, and the studio kept coming in saying we want to do it this way, to the point where it's just it wasn't even a shadow of what they wanted it to be.
Right.
And they were like, you know what? We'll do whatever the studio says. We've lost interest.
Yeah. And so the thing is that movie came out in the state it released in was actually a lot better than you think it would. It was an okay movie despite all those problems. But man, were we robbed from a masterpiece in my opinion.
I think it could have been really good, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm not just talking about practical effects. I'm talking about the other stuff that they made them do in that movie. It's just especially that last third of the movie, you can really see how the lack of care, where you can just wow, somewhere in editing, they really gave up on this film.
Oh yeah, even the last thing monster is what is this? They needed a boss.
I saw the sketches. I saw the sketches of the monster they wanted it to turn into at the end there. But you know what? It's just But the thing is we've been telling stories about how things have gotten messed up for years. Even before we were born, we had Advent Horizon, right? And that movie is just like, I love that movie. I love it. I love that movie so much. You know, it's one of my favorite horror movies. But oh my gosh, you better believe, as soon as I found out there was this alternate dream version of it where it's just like, yeah, this ship literally is like a hellscape and there are actual like demons and actual hell stuff going on. I got pissed because they cut it all out. And the thing is, it's like, people are just like, hey, is there a way for us to re-edit it and cut the stuff back in? And it's just like, we would love to, especially in this Blu-ray age with all the special features and stuff. But it's just, nobody knows where that footage is now. It could be destroyed. It could be gone, and we don't know. There's some footage that was recovered, but it's like horrible quality, right? And it's just like, and it's not even most of it. It's just like a quarter of the footage has been recovered, and it's like the worst quality ever. And it's just like, look, this does not bring back the movie. Even with this added footage, it doesn't bring back the original movie and stuff like that. But it just blows my mind that it's just like they filmed essentially an alternate movie. There's just like the penultimate version of it, and it's just like, yeah, it doesn't exist. Something that happened just earlier this week was System Shock came out. The remake of it?
Yes, I was very tempted to grab it. I hear nothing but good things so far.
You know what? You want to know what all my friends are saying? They're all saying, Jacob, it's amazing. There's no glitches anywhere. And I'm like, what? And I was like, was that after the day one patch? It's just like, no, you just install the game and it runs. And it works great. You know, it looks gorgeous. Like, it's bonkers. Where every single game I've bought for the past 3 years have been like, man, this game need a little more time in the oven, right? Or, hey guys, you should have worked on this an extra year. Usually those are the two things I typically say when a lot of these games come out. But what all my friends are saying are just like, yeah, no, this game, it was baked to perfection. It did not need any more development time, and it released when it, I think it had one delay, right? And it didn't have a set release day when they said it delayed it. It's just like they said, oh, it might come out in, what was it, 2020, I think is when they originally said it. And then it's just like, oh, well, no, it's not going to come out in 2020. So that's not really a reschedule. But what people are telling me, it's just like, hey, you know what? It's, as a remake, I talked to some people and they say, I don't like this mechanic, and the people who played the original respond to complaints like that. It's just like, well, that's how it was in the original, and that is a thing that wipes it away so easily because it is a remake. If you don't like something that's in a remake and they chose to make it the way that it was in the original, then all of a sudden, to most people, it just makes it okay. It's just like, oh, okay. If it was in the original, that makes it fine. Now, I don't personally agree with that, but I think, it's, I'm getting tired about complaining about things.
Look at the Dead Space remake, where it's like they completely removed or fixed certain parts of the asteroid bit, the thing that everybody complains about.
Right. And
then, from what I hear, they've added new sections to the ship that were very welcomed to the rest of the game.
Yeah.
So, hey, that's doing remake right as far as I'm concerned. Shall we move on to the Blob?
Yeah, let's move on to the Blob. Tell me about the Blob, because I have a list of complaints about your Blob review pertaining to your childhood and how you were afraid of it.
Childhood.
Okay, so you, and I quote, said, oh, while I'm in the bathroom, in the shower, or sitting on the toilet, I'm afraid of the thing coming out from beneath the door. Okay, right. Sir, you're in a bathroom, and the Blob is coming after you. Shoot, if you're taking a shower, it could just come through the faucet that you're already showering with.
Oh, that's true.
If you're on the toilet, it can come out of the toilet. Like, I think you, like, coming from, like, sorry, childhood Kevin, but your imagination was not, like, frightened enough. Period. That's it.
So, oh man.
This is the Blob we're talking about.
Yeah, you're right. Shoot, I didn't even think about that.
See, so
That's
now
a
your
horrifying
review
thought.
is trash.
You could have
because
just
that one
like
thing.
you could have just like totally told me that when I was a kid and horrified me even more.
It traumatized you. You'd be like the Blob kid. You know, and it's just like, you know, so your childhood was saved just because you weren't a little bit smarter. You were just dumb enough not to be worried about these things. But shoot.
Well, remember, okay. I wouldn't have thought about that unless they showed it in the movie. It going underneath doors and stuff like that. Now, remember, I was 6 and never really watched anything horror-related unless it was like Jurassic Park. For whatever reason, my parents took me to see that, all of them, as a child. I remember seeing the second one and the whole San Diego scene, and my parents told me, they were like, you were mad after that. And I was like, why was I mad? Because you thought the dinosaurs were in the parking lot smashing cars, and you thought they smashed our car. And you were amazed when we walked out and the car was fine.
Not as mad as your dad would have been after hearing his insurance wouldn't cover
There's a
that.
Homer Simpson's moment. Did you raise the dead? As long as you didn't hurt the car.
Did you smash the car? No. Did you raise the dead? No. Oh, yes. Oh, good. As long as you didn't smash the car. Ah, geez. You might as well just cut that clip in there. Twice.
Might as well.
Jeez.
But yeah, so that was a first for me. So much, I made such a gripe about it, and we watched the whole thing. My parents were like, well, let's see what happens to it. Now, they knew what I was getting into, but I didn't. And I made them get rid of the movie because I was horrified by it. Which, years later, we got the nice Blu-ray thing with a really cool poster in it, so I don't know. But as a first horror movie as a child, it traumatized me.
Oh my goodness. So you want to know what my
traumatized
childhood
me for a
traumatization looks like? Well, it looks like this. Some friends, family put a meal together, a macaroni and cheese, but put hot dogs into it. Man, I hated that. And you'd think that wouldn't make any sense as Jacob, you know, because it's like your two favorite things are macaroni and cheese and hot dogs. What are you talking about? This was before I was a sophisticated human being. This is baby whiny Jacob. And that's what traumatized me. So looking at what traumatized you, the Blob, versus what traumatized me, food. Yeah.
I'm surprised I wasn't more traumatized, because when I was a kid, and I know, like, maybe one person, I don't know if you're going to be that one person that would get this, but I watched as a kid, and we went through the book. It's a Christian book by Paul Bunyan. Or not Paul Bunyan. I forgot his name.
You better not
But
misquote.
oh yeah. Well, I'll figure it out. I'll put it in there.
We only
somewhere
get
when it's
one
time.
quote per video, or one comment per video. I'd hate our one comment for this video to be, "You're misquoting. It's not Paul Bunyan." Jeez, Kevin, get it straight.
I will put subtext for it. But it was a story called Pilgrim's Progress, and there was a book adaptation, and then there was also, to go with it, a video. And it has, like, Jacob, when I show you this, and one day we might have to go through it. Or just
Is it a
do
horror movie in
small
and of
thing.
itself?
Well, it's about the Christian life portrayed in the style of Bloodborne art. Which is why I love Bloodborne so much.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm into that, because I'm
I think we
familiar
could
with
hold
the
a whole
story.
podcast just on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm familiar with the story,
I will find it and send it
but
to you.
like, if you're like, here, you want to see some horror fuel? I'm like, yes, please and thank you.
Oh, there's things like there's one thing where it's like a whole cave full of skeletons and stuff like that.
What the heck?
And like there's a giant eyeball, and it's not just like normal human skeletons too. Like there's a giant skull in there with an eyeball in it. There's a castle, Doubting Castle, where it's like there's a pile of bones, and like the giant turns around and says, "Yeah, those were former Christians just like you, and when I got angry, I ripped them into pieces and threw them in that pile."
Oh, poor Christians.
I was very young when my parents were reading me this book and showing me this video too, and it kind of horrified me, but I was really like more interested in it, and I think that's why like I got really into Bloodborne, because I'm like, man, if I could play Pilgrim's Progress as a game, this would be it. Like, you just run around and, you know, I mean, the ending in the book for Pilgrim's Progress is way more positive than what Bloodborne's ending is.
What are you talking about? In Bloodborne, you turn into a god.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
There's a baby god, but you become one.
But you could be killed later.
Well,
They established gods can be killed in that universe.
That's why your fake wife in the game, you know, she takes care of you like a mother, which is a hill of beans in and of itself.
Yeah, it's like Benjamin Button levels.
Jeez, not even. Especially when you consider like the doll is being used by all the other hunters in that context.
Oh.
Yeah, you're not the only one using that doll.
The
Other people are using a doll,
implications.
and I mean, this is Bloodborne we're talking about. Nothing seems clean in that world.
No, everything is grimy and infected.
Yeah, exactly. Everything is grimy and infected.
Alrighty. Well, I think that could conclude the episode here. I can't think of anything else to talk about that would pertain, and we are definitely over or just about to hit our hour mark.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that could work. If you stopped in, this is your first time. Thank you for listening to our rambliness and our lists and such from whatever monster you're trying to kill, and have a safe endeavor going throughout the rest of the mansion or whatever hellscape you're in and killing whatever you're trying to kill.
But stay out of the bathroom because that's where the blob 100% can get you from any angle.
Oh yeah, for sure. All the angles, even up through the toilet.
Even from the electrical sockets, because we saw how electricity just doesn't harm the thing either.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I was
It can
very
get you from the
wary.
ceiling. Like, yeah. You must not like insulation, though. I imagine if you'd be a blob, you wouldn't like insulation.
Oh man, that could be totally the insulation you would never know.
Yeah. The insulation you don't know is the one that's going to kill you, if you're a blob, that is.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Anywho, thank you for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe if you like this content, and definitely share. We'd also like some feedback, so leave a comment and tell us whether we stink or you like this.
Please tell us if we stink, because I would really like to know if we're just... We need to
putting
stop.
this out
Because
into
if
the
we need to
ether.
stop, somebody needs to tell us we need to stop, because we are not
And
self-censoring.
then we'll say, oh, interesting. Well, we're not stopping, so. No, just kidding.
I don't know. If somebody told me to stop, I might.
No, maybe.
Maybe. All right.
Anywho, bye-bye.